The screen lit up while Olivia Shin was crouched on the kitchen floor, scrubbing the grout between the tiles. Ethan Zhao's message was clipped, almost like a directive. Company holiday gala Saturday. You're coming with me. She stared at the screen for a long moment. The rag in her hand dripped water onto the tile, spreading a dark patch that seeped into the grout she had just cleaned. 10 years. 10 years of dinners, client meetings, cocktail receptions. Ethan had attended every single one alone, walking out the door in a sharp suit and returning late at night reeking of scotch. She didn't even know which direction his office building faced. Why the sudden change? She wiped her hands dry and typed back, careful with her wording. Boss made it mandatory. Spouses required. Everyone in the department is bringing theirs. It'd look weird if I didn't. His tone was clipped with irritation, as if he were doing her a favor. Olivia read the message twice. She couldn't tell if she was pleased or wounded. After a decade of marriage, she was being permitted to step into his professional world. Not because he wanted her there, because he had no choice. She had been 25 when they married, fresh off a promotion to associate director of marketing at a top-tier firm. Ethan was just a department manager back then. They'd met at an industry mixer, and he had pursued her with a kind of devotion that felt cinematic, picking her up every day, flowers and gifts arriving in endless variation. Her parents had urged caution. His family had money troubles, they said. A younger brother and sister still leaning on him for support. Olivia had waved it off. Ambition mattered more than circumstances. Money could be earned. She got pregnant the first year. Ethan and his mother, Patricia Wong, tag-teamed her for months until she agreed to resign. We don't need your paycheck, they said. A woman's place is with her family. She hesitated for weeks, then caved. The day she cleared out her desk, she stood outside the office tower and cried. She told herself it was temporary. Once the baby was older, she'd go back. That was 10 years ago. The first child had barely turned 3 when the second arrived. Then Patricia took a fall and needed round-the-clock care. Then Ethan's younger brother Marcus needed startup money for a business venture. Then his sister Chloe's divorce imploded and she moved back home. Life churned endlessly, like a washing machine stuck on a cycle that never stopped. Somewhere along the way, Olivia's identity slipped from rising corporate star to the Zhao family's unpaid housekeeper. Saturday arrived faster than she expected. Ethan came home early from work and tossed a bag at her. Inside was a black dress. Wear this. Don't embarrass me. She unfolded it. Cheap polyester. Rough stitching. A loose thread dangling from the collar. His own closet was stuffed with $5,000 suits, yet buying his wife a halfway decent dress apparently crossed some invisible line. I have that silk gown in my closet. Could I wear that instead? She kept her voice even. Those clothes are ancient. 10 years old, right? He frowned, contempt threading through every word. Why would a housewife need anything nice? Just wear what I gave you. Don't make people think we blow all our money on you. She said nothing. She took the dress and went to the bedroom. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger. 35 years old. Dull skin. Fine lines webbing out from the corners of her eyes. Hands rough as sandpaper. There had been a time when Olivia Shin was known in the industry as the sales queen, the woman who had landed the Campaign of the Year award, who had accepted a trophy from her company's CEO in front of 1,000 people. Her phone buzzed. A voice message from Patricia. Olivia, when you're at that gala, don't talk if you don't have to. Don't embarrass Ethan. You don't know the first thing about professional settings, so just keep your mouth shut. She drew a long breath and set the phone face down on the dresser. At 7 o'clock, Ethan pulled up to the hotel. Before they stepped out of the car, he turned and looked at her, hesitating. Stay in the corner when we get inside. Don't wander around. Don't talk to anyone unless you have to. If someone asks, you're a homemaker. Don't bring up your past. She nodded. She didn't ask what he meant by don't bring up your past. She filed it away. The ballroom doors opened, and she saw their faces. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't even polite neutrality. It was outright disbelief, like they were watching Ethan Zhao walk in with the hired help. A cluster of polished women stood near the champagne tower, their gazes crawling over her from head to toe. Olivia caught fragments of whispers. "That's Director Zhao's wife? She looks like a maid." Ethan's expression tightened. He practically dragged her toward the far edge of the room, as though standing beside her was a public humiliation. Then a voice cut through the noise. "Olivia?" She turned. A woman in a Chanel suit was staring at her, eyes wide with shock. She crossed the room in quick strides, her voice trembling. "Olivia, is it really you?" "It's me, Vanessa Zhou. Do you remember?" Of course she remembered. Vanessa Zhou, her former assistant. The young woman she had mentored from day one, teaching her how to build proposals, negotiate with clients, write postmortems. Ethan froze. His gaze flicked between Vanessa and Olivia, utterly lost. And then Vanessa spoke again, loud enough that the entire ballroom fell quiet. "Everyone, this is my mentor, Olivia Shen, the youngest marketing director our industry had ever seen, winner of the National Gold Award in marketing before she even turned 32. Director Zhao, your wife is the Olivia Shen? How have you never mentioned this?" Every eye in the room swung toward them. The same women who had been whispering about the housewife moments earlier now stood frozen, mouths half open, champagne glasses suspended midair. Confusion bled into shock, then something closer to disbelief. Ethan's face drained of color before flooding back in a dark rush of red. His mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. Vanessa had already seized Olivia's hand, her eyes glistening. "I've been asking around about you for years. When I heard you quit after getting married, everyone said it was such a waste. I wouldn't be where I am today if you hadn't trained me. I still use the frameworks you taught me." Olivia stood there, taking in the polished, commanding woman before her. She remembered the girl who had walked into her office a decade ago, barely out of college, calling her Director Shen in a voice that shook with nerves. Now that girl was a marketing manager draped in designer labels. "Vanessa, it's been too long." Olivia's voice came out steady. Inside, her thoughts churned like a riptide. A second figure approached, a man in his early 40s, gold-rimmed glasses, a smile that held more calculation than warmth. "Ethan, you've been holding out on us." He studied Olivia with undisguised interest. "I had no idea your wife was Olivia Shen. Her case studies were practically textbooks when I was coming up. I still use them in onboarding training." Ethan's face had gone the color of raw liver. "Daniel, it wasn't. Daniel Sunday, company VP. Ethan's direct superior. And, as Olivia suddenly recalled, a university alumnus from her year." He extended a hand toward her. "Mrs. Zhao, or should I say Director Shen, you were a legend on campus. I wasn't even in your department, and I knew you'd won the national marketing competition. Ethan here is a lucky man." She took his hand with practiced ease. "Please call me Olivia." "Only if you call me Daniel." His smile sharpened as he turned to Ethan. 5 years we've worked together, old friend. You never once mentioned this. That's some impressive secrecy." Sweat beaded on Ethan's forehead. He laughed, a dry, strangled sound. "Olivia's been focused on the family since we got married. I didn't think it was worth bringing up ancient history." "Not worth it." Daniel adjusted his glasses, his gaze turning pointed. "You realize that the bid we lost last quarter was practically a carbon copy of her signature campaign? If we'd known your wife was the Olivia Shen, we could have saved a fortune on outside consultants." Vanessa jumped in before anyone could respond. Her City Lights campaign pushed a client's market share from 7% to 23% in under a year. It's still taught as a textbook case. My onboarding trainer played her presentation video on the very first day. Olivia felt Ethan's eyes drilling into her. The look was complicated, shock, confusion, and something she couldn't quite name. It almost looked like fear. A woman with bouncy curls and a diamond ring the size of a marble glided over, a standard-issue networking smile plastered across her face. "Daniel, who's your guest?" "Margaret, this is Director Zhao's wife, Olivia Shen." Although in our industry, the name speaks for itself. 10 years ago, she was one of the top marketing strategists in the country. Margaret's gaze traveled down Olivia's body, pausing noticeably at the cheap black dress. A microscopic twitch tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Really? And you walked away from all that? What a shame. The words were wrapped in politeness, but the condescension underneath was unmistakable. Before Olivia could respond, Vanessa cut in. Margaret, you should know, Olivia turned down a 3-time salary offer from a top headhunter to focus on her family. But if she ever wanted back in, I'd hire her on the spot, whatever terms she wanted. Margaret's smile froze. Ethan stood motionless, like a man who'd been turned to stone. Olivia noticed his hands trembling at his sides. Whether from nerves or something else, she couldn't tell. A server passed with a tray of champagne. Olivia lifted a glass with automatic grace and took a measured sip. A decade away from these rooms, but some things were carved into the bone. Margaret, she said, lowering her glass. Her voice was quiet but cut cleanly through the ambient noise. I understand your company's been expanding into the southern corridor lately. That demographic skews young, with limited purchasing power. If I had to guess, you're running into friction between your brand positioning and local market realities. Margaret's expression shifted. The dismissiveness vanished, replaced by a flicker of wariness. How would you know that? Guesswork. Olivia smiled. The consumer data for those regions went public last year. Anyone running market analysis would have spotted it. The solutions aren't complicated, though. There are a few established approaches. Olivia. Daniel cut in, his eyes bright with sudden intensity. Would you mind elaborating? Our team's been banging our heads against the exact same problem on a southern corridor proposal. Ethan shifted his weight from foot to foot, his voice coming out strained. Daniel, Olivia's been out of the industry a long time. Her insights might not be current. Let her finish. Daniel didn't even glance his way. Olivia looked at her husband, at the raw unease written all over his face, and a strange, bitter amusement bubbled up inside her. For 10 years he had kept her locked away, hidden from his professional life.
Now she understood why.
He had been terrified that someone would discover his housewife had once occupied a perch he could only dream of reaching. Another time, Daniel. She lifted her glass again. Tonight, I'm just a plus one. No shop talk. Vanessa seized the opening instantly. Olivia, let me get your number. Let's grab tea sometime. Ethan's face went dark. The second half of the gala was a slow-motion unraveling. Ethan sat rigid at the dinner table, jaw tight, stabbing at his food like it had personally offended him. Olivia ate quietly beside him, exchanging the occasional glance with Vanessa. Colleagues whispered at nearby tables, their eyes drifting toward the couple with expressions that had shifted from contempt to something more complicated: curiosity, reappraisal, intrigue. Margaret had somehow relocated to the seat directly across from Olivia, her smile now carrying a trace of genuine warmth. Director Shen, I owe you an apology. I underestimated you earlier. About that southern market issue, could you share a few thoughts? Just informally. Olivia set down her chopsticks. It's not complicated. Over 60% of the southern corridor's consumer base is under 30, but average income lags behind the eastern markets. Your brand skews premium, which creates a structural mismatch. Instead of forcing your existing product line into that space, you could launch a sub-brand or a limited collaboration line at a 20% lower price point, with distribution weighted toward e-commerce and pop-up retail. The model's been proven. Someone executed a version of this in FMCG 5 years ago. Same principle. Margaret's eyes lit up. That's exactly what our internal discussions have been circling. We just couldn't find the entry point. Ethan's chopsticks hit the table with a sharp crack. Silence rippled outward. Everyone turned. I'm done eating. He stood up, his face ashen. Olivia, let's go. She glanced at the time. 8:30 p.m. The gala had barely started. Your colleagues are still eating. Is it appropriate to leave now? I said we're leaving. His tone was iron, the same voice he used at home. Daniel appeared at Ethan's elbow, glass in hand. What's the rush? Your wife's just getting started. Stay a while. Something came up at home. Ethan's fingers closed around Olivia's wrist, tight enough to numb her fingers. The kids are with my mom. She can't manage them alone. Vanessa spoke up from across the table. Director Zhao, it's been so long since I've seen Olivia. Could she stay a little longer? I'll drive her home myself. Not necessary. Ethan's voice went cold as frost. She needs to go home and check the kids' homework. He pulled her toward the exit. Her heels skidded on the carpet, and she nearly stumbled. Looking back, she caught the expressions on their faces. Vanessa's concern, Daniel's narrowed eyes, Margaret's unreadable gaze. The car shot out of the hotel parking lot. Ethan floored the accelerator. The engine roared, slamming Olivia back against her seat. What the hell was that? His voice came through clenched teeth. Who told you to say all that? Say all what? She rubbed her wrist where his grip had left red marks. The work talk. The market strategy. Were you trying to show off? He slapped the steering wheel, a short, sharp blast from the horn punctuating the motion. Do you know who Margaret is? She's our biggest client. The things you said, what if she thinks our company is unprofessional now? If we lose that account, are you going to take responsibility? She drew a slow breath. I gave her useful market advice. It was accurate, and it benefits her business. How does that lose an account? What do you know? His voice rose to a shout. You've been at home for 10 years. You have no idea what the real world looks like anymore. You think it's still your old club? You think you're still Director Shin. The words hit like a blade slipped between ribs. 10 years. He was right about one thing. She had spent a decade at home. She had surrendered her career, her social circle, her identity. Every day had revolved around the stove, the children, his mother. She couldn't even buy a decent dress without his approval. What he forgot, what he always forgot, was who had made it possible for him to climb without ever looking back. She turned away, watching the city lights smear across the window. Something inside her chest ached in a way she couldn't name. At home, Patricia was sprawled on the sofa watching television, a graveyard of fruit peels and sunflower seed shells scattered across the coffee table. She frowned the moment Olivia walked in. Why are you back so early? I thought these things ran late. Ethan brushed past her without a word, disappeared into the bedroom, and slammed the door. Patricia's eyes landed on Olivia. Did you two fight?
No.
Olivia changed her shoes and started clearing the table. Olivia. Patricia settled deeper into the cushions, her voice taking on that familiar, lecturing tone. Ethan works hard out there. You need to be understanding. He took you to that event because he was being considerate.
Don't cause trouble for him.
His colleagues are respectable people. A housewife like you shouldn't be running your mouth and making a fool of herself and him. The rag in Olivia's hand stilled. Respectable people. Meaning she wasn't. Chloe emerged from her room in pajamas and a face mask, her voice dripping with casual poison. Mom, just leave it. She wants to have it both ways. Playing the devoted housewife at home and the corporate queen outside. These days, everyone wants to put gold leaf on their own face. The younger child started crying from the bedroom. Olivia dropped the rag and hurried in. The boy's face was flushed, his crying hoarse and ragged. She pressed a hand to his forehead and felt heat radiating off his skin. The thermometer confirmed it, 102.5 degrees. Ethan. She pushed open the bedroom door. The baby's burning up. We need to take him to the hospital. Ethan lay on the bed, back turned. Give him Tylenol. You don't go to the ER for every little fever. This isn't little. We can't wait it out at home. Are you serious right now? He sat up, eyes blazing. I have a client meeting tomorrow. Do you want us to spend half the night in the ER? Take a cab yourself. The doorbell rang. Vanessa stood on the doorstep, a bag of fruit in her hand. Thought I'd swing by and visit. She stepped inside with a warm smile, then registered the thermometer in Olivia's hand and the red rimming her eyes. Her expression shifted instantly. What's going on? Is the baby sick? Olivia nodded. Vanessa didn't hesitate. She pulled out her car keys. I'm parked outside. Let's go. I'll drive you to the hospital. In the living room, Patricia and Chloe exchanged blank looks. Ethan emerged from the bedroom. When he saw Vanessa, his face locked up for a split second. Manager Zhao, what brings you here? Director Zhao, your child is sick and you're standing around instead of heading to the ER? Vanessa's voice was uncharacteristically sharp. She tugged Olivia toward the door. Grab the baby. We're leaving. Under the harsh fluorescent lights of the ER, The younger child received a shot and finally drifted into quiet sleep against Olivia's chest. Vanessa sat beside her, pressing a cup of hot water into her hands. I had no idea this was your life. Vanessa's voice was raw. Ethan Zhao doesn't deserve you. Olivia managed a smile. It came out bitter. Vanessa, she said quietly, earlier tonight you said if I ever wanted back in, you'd hire me on the spot.
Did you mean it?
Vanessa's head snapped up, her eyes blazing like twin stars.
Olivia.
Are you serious? It was past 2 in the morning when they got back from the hospital. Ethan's bedroom light was off, but the blue flicker of the television bled through the gap beneath the door. The living room was a disaster zone. Seed shells, fruit rinds, crumpled tissues, a cluster of empty beer cans on the coffee table. Marcus had clearly stopped by. Olivia settled the baby, then moved through the house on autopilot, clearing the mess, mopping the floor, washing the fruit bowl. By the time everything was done, the sky outside the window had begun to pale. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind looping through the gala, the faces, the whispers, Vanessa's voice ringing in her head. He doesn't deserve you. 10 years ago, if someone had told her that, she might have smiled and said nothing. She had been an industry star. He had been an ordinary manager. Talented men had lined up for her attention, and she had chosen Ethan because he treated her well. A decade later, who deserved whom had somehow flipped. At 7 in the morning, Patricia emerged from her room. She found Olivia in the kitchen stirring a pot of congee and immediately launched in. That woman last night, who was she? Showing up at someone's house in the middle of the night.
No dicen sí.
She was a former colleague. The baby was sick. She was kind enough to drive us to the hospital. Olivia kept her voice low, eyes on the congee. A colleague. Patricia sniffed. The way she dressed, she didn't look like any decent professional to me. Whatever you did in the past, it's over. No need to keep those connections. Ethan is a director now. People talk. Olivia said nothing. She ladled the congee into bowls and set them on the table. Ethan walked out of the bedroom, eyes bloodshot. He sat down, stared at the congee, didn't pick up his spoon. What you said at the gala, he said, voice low. Have you been in contact with your old colleagues? Did you tell Vanessa to show up? She stared at him. I didn't even know she worked at your company.
Right.
Sure. He let out a cold laugh. You walk in and suddenly the whole company knows who you are. Do you have any idea what I'm going to face today? Everyone's going to say Ethan Zhao hit his wife. That he was scared she was better than him. So, it's not about me embarrassing you. The words left her mouth before she could stop them. It's about people finding out your wife used to be above you. And even though you've spent 10 years grinding her down, that old light still stings your ego. Isn't that it? The kitchen went silent. 10 years of swallowing her voice. 10 years of, you're just a housewife. Don't embarrass me. It had all condensed into that single sentence. Ethan's face contorted, blood rushing to his cheeks. Patricia slammed her palm on the table. Olivia Shin, how dare you speak to my son like that? He feeds you, clothes you, gives you a roof over your head. 10 years you've enjoyed an easy life at home, and now you look down on him? Easy life. Olivia looked at her own hands, rough, cracked, the hands of someone who scrubbed floors and washed dishes and folded laundry until her fingers ached. She thought about the 300 yuan dress, about having to beg for a trip to the hospital, about 10 years without a single vacation, a single luxury, a single dollar spent on herself. That was an easy life? Marcus shuffled out of the guest room, yawning, his hair a matted nest. He dropped into a chair and started shoveling congee into his mouth. Sis-in-law, who was that woman driving the car last night? She was pretty hot. You should introduce me. Chloe poked her head out from her doorway. Bro, you need to keep your wife in check. Don't let her run around with sketchy people. You're a director now. If people find out your wife is fooling around, you'll lose all face. Enough. Olivia's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a blade of ice. Everyone froze. She set down the rag and looked at each of them in turn. The woman who drove my sick child to the hospital last night was someone I trained years ago. She's now a marketing manager at a publicly traded company, pulling in high 6 figures a year. She's sketchy? And what does that make the rest of you? One who's been mooching off his brother for years, one who got divorced and moved back home to freeload, and one who burns through 20,000 yuan of her son's money every month and still complains it's not enough. The air congealed. Marcus's mouth hung open, kanji dribbling down his chin. Chloe went white as chalk. Patricia's eyes bulged, her lips trembling as she jabbed a finger toward Olivia. How dare you speak to me like that? Ethan's chair scraped back as he shot to his feet. Olivia, have you lost your mind? Apologize to my mother. She didn't move. She held his gaze. And in that moment, something crystallized inside her. For 10 years she had been afraid of losing the marriage, afraid of giving her children a broken home, afraid of people saying she wasn't good enough. So she had swallowed every insult, retreated from every confrontation, filed down every sharp edge of herself until she was a smooth, compliant, invisible presence in her own life. And what had it bought her? His contempt, his mother's entitlement, his brother's endless demands, his sister's cruelty. A reality where she needed a near stranger's help to take her own child to the hospital. I'm not apologizing. Her voice was eerily calm. I stated facts. Facts don't require apologies. She turned, walked into the bedroom, and locked the door. Her phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. Olivia, I meant what I said last night. We're hiring for a marketing consultant.
Part-time is an option too.
Think about it. She stared at the screen for a long time. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed 2 words. I'll consider it. The house erupted over the next few days. Patricia announced she was going back to the hometown to escape this disrespect, dragging Chloe along with her. Before leaving, she swept through the kitchen and smashed every seasoning bottle onto the floor. Soy sauce spattered across the tiles like a crime scene. Marcus, however, stayed and doubled down on his usual routine, gaming until the early hours, leaving takeout containers to rot on the coffee table. Ethan left early and came home late, moving around her in a bubble of silence. They coexisted like strangers sharing a lease, the politeness more suffocating than outright anger. Yet Olivia felt lighter than she had in years. During the hours when the children were at school, she cracked open her old files. The computer was ancient and sluggish, but it ran. She excavated case studies from a decade ago, dusted off data analysis models, updated marketing proposal templates piece by piece. The gap between then and now was vast, an entire canyon. The industry had transformed. Everything she once knew about offline activations and television spots had been swallowed by short-form video, live streaming, and private domain traffic ecosystems. She approached it like a beginner, studying tutorials, listening to podcasts, dissecting successful campaigns until her eyes burned and her neck seized up. But she wasn't afraid. The woman who had climbed from entry-level sales rep to marketing director could close a 10-year gap without crumbling. Vanessa sent over stacks of reference materials and met her for tea twice. After every conversation, she shook her head with something like awe. You're still sharper than half the people in this industry. Most of them don't grasp the logic you're working through. You're giving me too much credit, Olivia said.
No.
You've been undervaluing yourself for too long. On the 5th evening, Ethan came home early for the first time in weeks. Olivia was in the kitchen, the range hood roaring, and didn't hear him come in. He stood in the doorway watching her for a minute before he spoke. I had dinner with Daniel yesterday. He asked about you. She turned down the flame, but didn't turn around. What did he ask? Whether you'd be interested in consulting for us. Ethan's voice was strange, strained, probing. He said the Southern Corridor project is stalled. He wants your input. Olivia lifted the pan and slid the vegetables onto a plate. What did you tell him? That you'd think about it.
He paused.
What are you going to say? I haven't decided. He frowned and sat down heavily at the table. What's there to decide? You've been out of the game for a decade. You'd be lost in a real workplace. And if you came to my company, what would people say? They'd say I'm coasting on my wife's coattails. Since when is leaning on your wife a bad thing? She sat down across from him, untying her apron. Isn't that exactly what you've been doing for 10 years? You've been able to focus entirely on your career because I took care of the children, your mother, the household. How is that not leaning on me? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out.
Ethan.
She met his eyes. I'm giving you two options. 1. I consult for your company at market rate, strictly business. 2. I work somewhere else, you keep doing what you're doing, and we each walk our own path. His expression shifted. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm going back to work. She set her chopsticks down, every word enunciated. Whatever you think about it, I'm done waiting. I gave 10 years to you, to the children, to this household. Now I'm going to live for myself. Ethan's face twisted into something ugly before he forced out a laugh. Who do you think you are? 10 years at home, and you think anyone wants you? Don't let Vanessa's empty flattery get in your head. She was being polite. You actually believed her. The doorbell rang. A middle-aged man in a tailored suit stood on the doorstep, leather briefcase in hand. I'm looking for Ms. Olivia Shen. Does she reside here?
I'm Olivia Shen.
He extended a business card. Lawrence Liu, HR Director at Grand Summit Group. We've heard you're considering a return to the industry. I'm here to invite you for an interview next week. The position is Vice President of Marketing. She took the card and turned back toward the dining table. Ethan's chopsticks clattered to the floor. The card was printed on heavy stock with embossed gold lettering. Lawrence Liu, Human Resources Director, Grand Summit Group. Olivia held it between her fingers, feeling the cool weight of it. Grand Summit was a top 3 conglomerate, its reach spanning real estate, technology, and consumer goods. The VP of Marketing role was the kind of position that, even at the peak of her career, would have required careful consideration. Miss Shen, the chairman gave me explicit instructions to approach you personally. Lawrence smiled. He attended an industry summit 10 years ago and never forgot your presentation. When word reached him that you might be open to returning, he sent me immediately. Ethan had risen from his chair and moved toward the door, his eyes locked on the business card with an expression that bordered on nausea. Grand Summit? How would you even know about my wife? Lawrence turned to him with practiced courtesy. Mr. Zhao, news travels in this industry. Besides, Vanessa Zhou has done work with our chairman. She recommended Miss Shen in the strongest terms. Vanessa. Again. A muscle in Ethan's jaw jumped. His fists clenched at his sides, veins rising along his forearms. He looked like a man watching something slip through his fingers in slow motion. Please come in. Olivia stepped aside. I won't impose. I only came to deliver the invitation. Lawrence produced an envelope from his briefcase and handed it to her with both hands. Next Wednesday, 10 in the morning, at our headquarters. The chairman will interview you himself. We look forward to seeing you. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, compensation won't be an issue. The chairman instructed me to say this. Double whatever your previous peak salary was, plus equity. The door clicked shut. The living room fell into a silence, so complete, she could hear the clock on the wall ticking off each second. Ethan stood motionless, like a man hollowed out. His lips moved soundlessly before he managed to force out. You're actually going? Why wouldn't I? She met his stare. You've told me for years that I've had it easy at home. Now I want to go out and struggle. You should be thrilled. Olivia. His voice spiked, quivering with barely contained fury. Grand Summit is a direct competitor. If you take that job, how am I supposed to face anyone at my company? So, to protect your reputation, I should turn down a career-defining opportunity and stay here as your unpaid housekeeper? That's not what That's exactly what you meant. She placed the envelope on the table and fixed him with a look that pinned him in place. Let me ask you something, Ethan. Answer honestly. In 10 years of marriage, have you ever, even once, genuinely thought about what I want? Whether I'm happy, whether I'm exhausted, or has your mind always been occupied with what your mother says, what your brother needs, what your sister wants, and how you look in front of your colleagues? He stood there, mouth working, producing nothing. Don't bother. I'll answer for you. She breathed in.
No.
Not once. You didn't marry me because you loved me. You married me because I was worthy of you back then. And when you pushed me to stay home, it wasn't because the family needed me. It was because you were terrified that if I went back out there, I'd outshine you. The words landed like a surgical incision, opening up the most guarded, vulnerable place inside him. Ethan's face cycled through a palette of color, red, white, gray. His hands trembled. His lips quivered. He looked like a fish gasping on dry land. The bedroom door swung open. Patricia stepped out, her face a mask of cold fury. She had never left for the hometown. She had been in the bedroom the entire time, listening. "Those are cruel words, Olivia." Her voice was winter. "Ethan has worked himself to the bone for years. He supports this family, and this is the thanks he gets? Have you no conscience?" Olivia turned to face her mother-in-law, and the words she had swallowed for a decade pressed against the back of her throat. "Patricia, don't call me that. I don't deserve the honor." Patricia dropped onto the sofa and began slapping her thigh in a theatrical display of grief. "My poor son. Married a woman who can't stay content. 10 years at home. And suddenly it's not enough. What's she going out there to find, Who's she planning to meet?" Chloe materialized from her room, leaning against the doorframe with practiced nonchalance. "Mom, stop crying. She's Director Shin now. She's above us common folk. Brother, you'd better watch yourself, or you'll end up with nothing and no one." Marcus poked his head out of the guest room, a toothpick dangling from his lips. "Hey, sis-in-law, if you do end up at Grand Summit, think you could get me a job? I'll do security or whatever. I'm not picky." Olivia looked at them. This family, she had spent 10 years serving, and the absurdity of it all crashed over her like a wave. When she had first married into the Zhao household, they had greeted her with smiles and praise. "Olivia, you're so capable," they'd said. After she resigned, the word shifted from capable to domestic, from domestic to just a housewife, from just a housewife to something closer to servant. Now she was trying to stand up and they were panicking. Not because they were worried about her, because they were worried for themselves. "I'm not getting you a job." She looked straight at Marcus. "You're 32 years old. You're healthy, you're able-bodied. Get one yourself. Your brother has supported you for 5 years. That's long enough." Marcus's expression curdled. "And you, Chloe." She shifted her gaze. "Divorce is painful, but what's worse is believing your life is over because of it. You can find work. You can start over. What you can't do is hide in your brother's house and mock the person who keeps it running." Chloe's mouth formed a perfect O. Her face mass-crinkled. "And, Patricia," Olivia's voice finally wavered, just slightly, "you know how I've treated you for 10 years. I cared for you when you were hospitalized. I cooked whatever you wanted. I listened to everything you said without talking back. And in return, did you ever see me as family? Or was I always just the hired help?" Patricia's theatrical weeping stopped. Her lips moved, but no sound came. The living room sank back into silence. Ethan stood in the center of it all, looking from his mother to his wife, and finally lowered his head. Without a word, he walked into the bedroom and closed the door. That night, Olivia slept in the guest room. Her phone lit up on the nightstand. "Vanessa, Lawrence said you took the invitation. That's amazing. An opportunity like this doesn't come twice. You have to go for it." She typed back, "Thank you, Vanessa. Whatever happens, I won't forget what you've done." Vanessa's reply came almost instantly. "Don't thank me. Thank yourself. Your track record is written into this industry's history. I'm just giving back what was always yours." Olivia held the phone and felt the tears spill over. Not from bitterness. From the overwhelming, unfamiliar sensation of someone telling her that she deserved something. The days that followed were a blur of preparation. While the kids were at school, she camped out at the public library, poring over research reports and drafting proposals. After the kids went to bed, she devoured case studies, industry white papers, market analysis podcasts. She deleted every entertainment app from her phone. The television stayed off. She even listened to marketing lectures while cooking dinner. Ethan watched her with a wariness that seemed to border on disbelief. Several times he looked on the verge of speaking, only to swallow the words. Patricia kept a frosty silence for 2 days before resuming her campaign of petty sabotage. She rearranged the kitchen spice cabinet while Olivia was out. She threw away half the groceries, claiming the vegetables weren't fresh enough. Olivia knew it was deliberate. Every item had been purchased the day before. Chloe escalated. She hit the power cord to Olivia's laptop. Olivia searched for an hour before her older son, 9 years old and already sharper than the adults in the house, retrieved it from the depths of Chloe's closet. He tugged at his mother's sleeve and said, "Mom, don't be scared. I'll protect you." She crouched down and wrapped her arms around him, and the tears came before she could stop them. She had endured 10 years in this house for the children. But now she understood. The more she swallowed, the more her children saw a mother who was meek, mistreated, disrespected. That wasn't the lesson she wanted to teach them. Wednesday morning arrived. Olivia was up at 6, washed her hair, applied her makeup with careful precision. She took the silk gown from the back of her closet, the one she had bought 10 years ago and never had an occasion to wear, and slipped it on. She pinned up her hair, fastened a pair of earrings, and studied the woman in the mirror. For the first time in a decade, she caught a glimpse of her former self. Ethan emerged from the bedroom and stopped dead. He stared at her like he was seeing a stranger, or like he was seeing someone he had convinced himself no longer existed. "Where are you going dressed like that?" Interview. She picked up her bag. "You knew that. I'll drive you." The words came out abrupt, almost reflexive. She looked at him, then shook her head. "I'll take a cab. I'll drive you." There was something in his voice that hadn't been there before, something that wasn't quite command and wasn't quite plea.
She didn't argue.
They rode in silence through the morning traffic. When the car pulled up in front of Grand Summit's headquarters, a gleaming tower in the city's financial core, she pushed open the door. "Olivia." She turned back. Ethan's throat worked for a moment before he managed, If it doesn't go well, there's still a place for you at home." She looked at him, and a small, sad smile crossed her face. "You still don't get it, do you? I don't need you to give me a place. I need you to see me as a person with dreams and abilities and self-respect. I don't want your charity. I want your respect." She closed the car door and walked into the building without looking back. The lobby of Grand Summit Group was all marble and glass, with 8 receptionists stationed behind a sweeping curved desk. When Olivia gave her name, the young woman at the front desk rose to her feet with an expression of instant deference. "Miss Shun, the chairman is expecting you on the top floor. Right this way." The elevator climbed endlessly, the city sprawling wider through the glass panels with every passing floor. Olivia stood in the center of the car, breathing slowly, running through her presentation in her mind. The doors opened onto the executive floor. A man in his mid-50s stood before a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows, his back to her. When he turned, she recognized him instantly. Charles Gu, chairman of Grand Summit Group, a fixture on the Forbes list, and the man who had hosted the industry summit where she had given her keynote address 10 years ago. Olivia Shin. He crossed the room with a warm smile and extended his hand. "You haven't changed at all." "You're too kind, Chairman Gu." She shook his hand, her palm damp with sweat. "Sit, please." He gestured toward a leather sofa and settled into the armchair across from her. "No need to be nervous. I just want to talk. I'm curious. What have you been doing for the last 10 years? She told him the truth. Raising children, managing a household, caring for elderly relatives, keeping up with industry news where she could, but no active professional engagement. He nodded, his expression giving nothing away, no disappointment, no sympathy. Instead, he asked a question she hadn't anticipated. "If I gave you a problem to solve right now, where would you start?" She had spent an entire week preparing for exactly this question. Olivia opened her laptop and pulled up the proposal she had built over 3 sleepless nights. "Chairman Gu, your conglomerate covers an enormous range: real estate, technology, consumer goods. But the divisions operate largely in silos. Real estate generates capital that funds tech. Tech generates returns that fund consumer goods. On paper, it looks diversified, but in practice, it's fragmentation." She stood and moved to the whiteboard, marker in hand. "My approach would be to tie these divisions together under a unified brand IP. Real estate develops themed residential communities. Technology powers the smart home ecosystem inside them. Consumer goods create branded merchandise and lifestyle products that extend the experience outward. Three pillars, all feeding into each other, forming a closed loop. Charles leaned back, his expression unreadable.
She pressed on.
The core logic is using a consumer-facing mindset to drive B2B reform. The market has shifted. You don't sell what you have anymore.
You sell what the user demands.
Grand Summit's strength is a complete industrial chain. Its weakness is that it's too hard. There's no emotional connection with the end consumer. My job would be to inject soft power into this commercial machine. She spoke for 40 minutes, moving from strategy to tactics, from macro to micro, laying out everything she had. When she finished, the office was silent. Charles rose and walked to the window. He stood there for a long moment, gazing out at the skyline. Then he turned, and the smile on his face was genuine. Do you know why I chose to interview you personally? She shook her head. Because I've always believed one thing. A person with real talent doesn't lose it, no matter how many years they've been away. Talent is in the bones. It doesn't care whether you've been in the room or not. He walked back and extended his hand. Welcome to Grand Summit Group, Vice President of Marketing. 3-month probationary period. A compensation at the top of the industry band. 0.5% equity, vesting in 3 years. She shook his hand. Her fingers were trembling. 0.5%. At Grand Summit's current valuation, that was 8 figures. Lawrence Liu was waiting in the hallway as she walked out. He gave her a thumbs up. Impressive, Director Shin. The chairman rarely makes decisions on the spot. She thanked him, stepped into the elevator, and leaned against the wall, eyes closed. 10 years. She had finally reached this day. The elevator doors opened onto the ground floor lobby, and she stopped. Ethan was still there, sitting on one of the lobby sofas, clutching a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. He jerked his feet when he saw her, coffee splashing over his hand, and crossed the marble floor in quick strides. How did it go? She looked at the anxiety written across his face, and it struck her. This man was pitiable, too. He had spent a decade and all his energy trying to prove he was better than her. And after everything, he had discovered that no matter how hard he tried, he could never erase what she was. I got the offer, she said. He stepped back like the air had been knocked out of him. His face went pale. After a long pause, he asked, When do you start? Next Monday. And the household? I'll handle the household. I'll take care of the kids, manage the house, and do my job. All of it. She held his gaze, her voice steady. Ethan, I'm not trying to divorce you. I'm not trying to compete with you. I just want to be whole, a complete version of myself. You should be supporting me, not standing in my way. He lowered his head. The silence stretched. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. Okay. She knew those 2 words weren't genuine support, just reluctant surrender. But it didn't matter. It was a beginning. Her first day at Grand Summit was a masterclass in what it meant to be isolated at the top. The marketing team greeted her with polished smiles and carefully worded pleasantries, but the whispers followed her through every corridor. Empty parachute. Figurehead hire. Got the job through connections. Never worked a real day in her life. She heard it all and let it slide off her. 10 years of Patricia's barbs had given her thick skin, and besides, she knew how this game worked. The more you defended yourself, the guiltier you looked. The only rebuttal that mattered was results. The first project that landed on her desk was the Southern Corridor expansion proposal. It had been sitting in limbo for half a year, cycling through 2 different teams, each of which had failed to close the deal. The client was a major regional retailer with punishing demands, a shoestring budget, and a contract that read like a list of ultimatums. At the first team meeting, a 30-something analyst with wire-rimmed glasses and a seen-it-all smirk said, Director Shin, we've analyzed this deal 6 ways from Sunday. It can't be done. You're new here. Don't let your first project be the one that sinks you. She studied him for a beat. Why do you think it can't be done? The quote is too low. Our margin would be non-existent. The client wants fully customized services and demands measurable results within 3 months.
It's predatory.
They're not negotiating in good faith. Olivia flipped through the proposal and closed the folder. I'm flying down there tomorrow. I'll meet with the client face-to-face. The conference room rustled with disbelief. Director Shin, we've gone back and forth with them for months. They refuse to budge. The client isn't the one refusing to budge. We just haven't identified their real need. She stood up. Behind every unreasonable demand, there's a reasonable motivation. The budget is low because that's their ceiling. They want customization because off-the-shelf solutions don't work in their market. The 3-month deadline means someone on their side is under pressure to show results. Our job isn't to complain about the terms, it's to find the optimal solution within the constraints they can't escape. The room went quiet. That afternoon, she flew south. The only person traveling with her was Jenny Chin, her new assistant, a girl barely 2 years out of college, palms slick with nerves. Director Shin, I'm afraid I won't be much help. You'll take notes and keep my tea hot. Leave the rest to me. The client was a woman in her mid-40s named Catherine Lin, known throughout the Southern business circuit as the Iron Lady, a negotiator who never blinked first. True to form, Catherine opened with a power play.
So, you're the new VP they sent.
Let me be direct, Director Shin. I've seen your company's previous proposals. They're unacceptable. Either meet my terms or we're done here. Most people would have flinched. Olivia smiled instead. She pulled a new proposal from her bag and slid it across the table. I drafted this last night. Take a look. Catherine picked it up, flipped through a few pages, and her expression began to shift. How did you know this was what I needed? Olivia lifted her teacup. Your budget is low not because you're cheap, but because your margins are thin. You want customization not because you're difficult, but because you know standard products won't compete in your region. You need results in 3 months, not because you're impatient, but because you need ammunition to prove your value to your board. Catherine set the proposal down and stared at her for a long moment. You've done your homework on me. I didn't need to. Olivia met her eyes. Every woman who's fought her way up in this industry understands these pressures instinctively. So, I won't waste your time with games. I'll do everything I can to make this project succeed. In return, I need you to give me room to work. The office was silent for a full half-minute. Then Catherine Lin smiled, her first genuine smile of the meeting.
Fine.
We'll use your terms, but the results better be there. Jenny nearly levitated out of her chair when they left the building. Director Shin, that was incredible. They spent 6 months banging their heads against this, and you closed it in 1 meeting. Olivia allowed herself a small smile but said nothing. She knew this was just the opening move. The real battle was still ahead. By the time she returned to headquarters, the office atmosphere had shifted palpably. The skeptical whispers faded, replaced by watchful, assessing eyes. The department wanted to know what this empty parachute was actually made of. She dismantled the project into 7 modules, assigned clear ownership for each, and set timelines calibrated to the day. Morning stand-ups at 8:30 sharp. Daily recaps every evening. Problems surfaced and resolved within the same business day. Nothing left to fester overnight. The team groaned at the pace. Within a week, they couldn't argue with the results. The project was moving faster than anything the department had seen in months. Vanessa called to congratulate her, then asked, "How are things with Ethan?" Olivia paused. She had been so immersed in work that home had faded to the periphery.
Fine.
We're both busy. Olivia. Vanessa's voice shifted. I heard from some people that Ethan's been off lately, distracted in meetings. Daniel asked him if everything was okay at home, and he brushed it off. After the call, Olivia sat at her desk, watching the city lights flicker on through the window. In the 3 weeks since she'd started, her interactions with Ethan had dwindled to almost nothing. She left before he woke. She returned after he was asleep. 2 parallel lines moving through the same house, never intersecting. Friday evening, she came home early for the first time. She opened the door and stopped. Ethan was in the kitchen, wearing an apron, fumbling with a frying pan. Oil spattered, and he yelped, shaking his hand. "What are you doing?" She stood in the doorway, genuinely stunned. He spun around, face flushing red. I thought since you've been so busy, I'd make dinner.
10 years.
This was the first time. She stood there, watching him awkwardly jab at the contents of the pan, the apron tied crooked, oil streaked across the stovetop, soup boiling over the edge of the pot. He looked like a child learning to cook for the first time. Her nose stung, and her eyes blurred before she could stop it. Don't just stand there, tell me if the heat's right. His voice was gruff, embarrassed. She walked over, took the spatula from his hand, and finished the stir-fry with practiced efficiency. They sat across from each other at the dinner table, eating in silence. Olivia. He spoke suddenly. Your project. How's it going? It's on track. If all goes well, we launch next month. Oh, more silence. Then, so quietly she almost didn't catch it. I'm sorry. Her chopsticks paused midair. What did you say?
I'm sorry.
He raised his head, and his eyes were rimmed red. For all these years.
I'm sorry.
It was the first apology she had heard in 10 years of marriage. That night, Ethan talked for a long time. He told her he had always known he wasn't good enough for her, had known it from the day they met. She was the industry star, the person everyone looked up to. He was just an ordinary manager. He hadn't pursued her because she was beautiful or kind. He had pursued her because winning Olivia Shen felt like a trophy in itself. When you quit your job, I was relieved. He stared down at the table, his voice scraped raw. I thought, finally, now we're on the same level. No, now I'm above you. You're just a housewife, and I'm the manager, the director, the one who provides. I knew how ugly that was, but I couldn't stop it. Every time you brought up going back to work, my first reaction was fear. Fear that you'd return to that world, to that position I could never reach. So, I tore you down. I made you feel small. Not because I didn't know how extraordinary you were, because I knew exactly how extraordinary you were, and it terrified me. He picked up his glass and drained it. That gala, the reason I didn't want to bring you wasn't because I was afraid you'd embarrass me. It was because I was afraid you'd shine too brightly. I'd known who you were all along. I knew your reputation. I was terrified my colleagues would find out my wife was this formidable, and then they'd all think, what's Ethan Zhao got? Nothing. He's just riding his wife's shadow. He set the glass down. That night, you did exactly what I was afraid of. Daniel's eyes when he looked at you. Margaret's whole demeanor shift. The way Vanessa said your name with that reverence, it all told me the same thing. No matter how hard I tried, I would never catch up to you. You thought I was angry because I was worried about losing a client? I was angry because I was ashamed. I thought 10 years of keeping you at home would dull you into something ordinary. I was wrong. Gold doesn't tarnish just because you bury it. Olivia listened, without speaking. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. It must have taken something immense for him to say these things. She understood that. But she also understood that understanding wasn't the same as absolution. Then why are you telling me this now? She asked. He was quiet for a long time. That day you walked out of Grand Summit. I was sitting in the car, and I saw you come through those doors. You were wearing that dress. Your head was up. You looked like you were glowing. His voice cracked. And I remembered. That's who you were when I first met you. That's the woman I fell in love with. Somewhere along the way, I turned into a person who just wanted to extinguish that light. But the truth is, I didn't want a dimmed version of you. I wanted you. All of you. The words hit a place inside her that had been locked away for years. She had asked herself so many times whether this man still loved her. Now she knew.
He did.
He always had. But his love had been warped by insecurity, by pride, by a culture that told him a man had to stand above his wife or not stand at all.
Ethan.
She wiped her eyes. Thank you for telling me all of this. But I need time. To absorb it. To process it. You can't expect me to hear one confession and pretend the last 10 years didn't happen. Do you understand? He nodded. I know. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I'm asking you to give me a chance to be better. They talked late into the night. He said he would speak to his mother, set boundaries, stop her interference. He would tell Marcus to move out and find his own way. He would make Chloe understand that she needed to take responsibility for her own life. Olivia didn't know how much of it would materialize, but for the first time he was trying. The days that followed proved he meant it. Ethan started shouldering household chores, making the kids breakfast, helping with homework in the evenings. When Patricia tried to meddle, he shut it down. When Marcus refused to leave, Ethan found him an apartment, paid 3 months' rent up front, and said, "This is the last time. From here on, you're on your own." When Chloe made a snide remark, Ethan looked her in the eye and said, "If you can't respect Olivia, don't bother coming to our house." Patricia raged. She accused him of choosing his wife over his mother. Ethan talked back for the first time in his life. "Mom, Olivia is the person I'm spending my life with. You're my mother, and I'll always honor you. But you will not bully my wife." Olivia watched him transform, week by week, into a man she had hoped he could become. Not everything went smoothly. The Southern Corridor project hit a wall a week before launch. The client's side suddenly demanded a revision to the core contract terms, threatening to walk away entirely if their demands weren't met. The marketing department exploded. "I knew this project was cursed. All those resources down the drain. Director Shin, can you get Catherine back to the table?" Olivia absorbed the panic, without flinching. She spent an hour thinking, then called Catherine directly. "Catherine, this sudden change, you're under pressure from somewhere. What's going on?" A pause. Then Catherine exhaled. "I won't lie to you. There's resistance on the board. Someone's calling the terms too generous. I'm catching fire from above." "What specifically are they objecting to?" "Same old arguments. Price too high. Timeline too slow." Olivia calculated rapidly. "If I can shorten the project cycle by a month within the current budget, will that satisfy the board?" "You can do that." "I can. But I need one thing in return, a 30% advance payment." She hung up and worked through the night, restructuring the entire project plan. Every redundant process was cut. Every unnecessary cost was eliminated. Every task that could run in parallel was realigned. Jenny stayed with her through the small hours, fretting. "Director Shun, you need to rest. Your health." "No time." Olivia pressed her fingers to her temples. Her eyes burned. "If this project fails, it's not just my reputation. The whole department's confidence collapses. I can't let that happen." She sent the revised proposal to Catherine at 7 in the morning. By 2 in the afternoon, the response came, "Board approved. Advance payment processing tomorrow." Olivia sank back in her chair and let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for a week. The news traveled fast. After that, the whispers stopped. Colleagues who had doubted her looked at her differently, wariness replaced by something closer to respect. The analyst who had warned her not to sink herself on her first project came to her office to apologize. "Director Shun, I underestimated you. You really do have the skills." She smiled. "It's fine. We're all here to get the job done." On launch day, Catherine flew up from the south specifically to take her to dinner. "Director Shin, I'll be honest, before we started working together, I didn't have much faith in Grand Summit. Big companies are usually more bureaucracy than substance." She raised her glass. "But you're different. You showed me what professionalism looks like. From now on, any Southern project goes through you." Olivia touched her glass to Catherine's. "Thank you for your trust." She got home close to midnight. The living room light was still on. Ethan was on the sofa, waiting, a bowl of soup warming on the table. "You're back. Drink this while it's hot." He stood and took her bag. She wrapped her hands around the warm bowl and watched him retreat into the kitchen. Something quiet and warm bloomed in her chest. This man was changing. Not because he was afraid of losing her, because he was finally learning how to love. 3 months later, Olivia passed her probationary review and was officially confirmed as Vice President of Marketing at Grand Summit Group. The company hosted a welcome dinner in her honor, and Charles Gu attended in person. He raised his glass in front of the assembled executives and said, "Olivia Shun is one of the most gifted marketing minds I've ever encountered. Her return is Grand Summit's good fortune." She stood, lifting her own glass in return. Chairman Gu is too generous. I'll only say this, it's never too late to start again. Don't ever let someone else's dismissal make you doubt your own worth. The room applauded. Vanessa was there. She wrapped Olivia in a fierce embrace. I knew you could do it. Thank you, Vanessa. If you hadn't pulled me up when I was falling, I might still be hesitating. I didn't pull you up. You stood up on your own. That night, Ethan attended the dinner too. He didn't sit with the executives. He found a quiet corner and watched her from across the room. Afterward, he drove her home. Partway there, he said, Olivia, I need to tell you something.
What?
I stepped down as director. I talked to Daniel and requested a transfer to the technical department as a project lead. Starting from scratch.
She turned to him, shocked.
What are you talking about? I've been thinking. He kept his eyes on the road, his voice calm. I spent too many years obsessed with titles and appearances. I forgot what I actually wanted to do. Technology is what I'm good at, not marketing. I was only clinging to that director role to prove I could stand shoulder to shoulder with you. I don't need to prove that anymore. I just want to do work I actually care about.
She didn't know what to say.
Besides, he added, a faint smile crossing his face, having a wife who's an industry powerhouse isn't exactly bad for my image. My wife's a legend, has a nice ring to it. She laughed despite herself. You've changed, Ethan Zhao. You changed me. He glanced at her at a red light. These last few months, I've watched you work yourself to exhaustion, solve impossible problems, face down every obstacle. You showed me what real strength looks like. It's not about tearing others down to lift yourself up. It's about standing on your own 2 feet, saying nothing, and letting your light speak for itself. Her throat tightened. Don't cry yet. I'm not done. He reached over and took her hand. Olivia, I know I put you through 10 years of pain. I'm not going to pretend 3 words can erase that. But I want to spend every day of the rest of my life making up for the decade I took from you. Streetlights swept past the windows, strobing light and shadow across his face. She closed her fingers around his. Some things took a long time to rebuild, but at least they were both on the path. When they got home, Patricia was waiting at the door. Olivia, you're back. Her voice was stiff, awkward, but absent of its usual venom. I made you soup. Drink it while it's hot. Olivia stood motionless, stunned. Chloe emerged from her room holding a plate of sliced fruit. Sis-in-law, have some fruit. Even Marcus sent a message. Sis-in-law, I got a job. Driving for a logistics company.
Thanks for what you said.
It woke me up. Olivia held the bowl of soup and let the tears come. This house was finally starting to feel like a home. Not because she had status and money now, because they were finally learning to see her as a person. Not a maid. Not an accessory. Not a tool. 6 months after her return, the Southern Corridor project delivered its first major milestone, boosting Grand Summit's regional market share by 12%. Charles Gu personally presented her with the annual Outstanding Performance Award, a cash bonus and equity incentive package valued at over 20 million yuan. At the awards ceremony, Ethan sat in the audience with their 2 children. Her older son recorded the whole thing on his phone. The younger one waved his arms and shouted, "Mommy's the best." Standing on that stage, looking down at their faces, Olivia thought of the woman she had been 6 months earlier, crouched on the kitchen floor, scrubbing grout, believing her life was already written. She had been wrong. Never underestimate what a woman can endure. The world may grind away her edges, marriage may drain her fire, time may steal her youth. But as long as she refuses to give up on herself, nothing can truly break her. After the ceremony, she came home. The living room light was on, just as it had been every night. Ethan was waiting on the sofa. Long day. He stood and took her bag. She smiled and walked into the bedroom. Then she stopped. On the nightstand was a bouquet of roses and a small, elegant box. Inside was a diamond necklace, the pendant shaped like a star. A card lay beside it. You're the brightest star I've ever seen. I tried to dim you once. Now, I want the whole world to see your light. She held the card and let the tears blur her vision. Ethan stood in the doorway, looking almost nervous. Do you not like it? She shook her head, crossed the room, and wrapped her arms around him. Thank you, Ethan. For what? For finally learning to love me as I am. Moonlight slanted through the curtains, catching the diamond and scattering flecks of light across the walls. Like stars. Like hope. Like the fire that burns inside every woman who refuses to be defeated, quiet, stubborn, and impossible to extinguish.